5:30 p.m. Going to call the meeting to order. We can start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just want to go over our meeting guidelines and safety protocol. Purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is recorded. You can listen to past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. And this meeting is being presented as well via Zoom. And it's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during this meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. In case of an emergency, for those here who are here with us in the building, there's an exit that you came in, and then also an exit behind us. And with that, and I do believe we have 4 board members physically present. Do we have Maren is on Zoom? Okay, so we have all board members present. Director Johnson, would you like to read our vision and mission statement?
Thank you. Vision: our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Mission: in connection with our community, Swim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. Director Jeffries, would you care to share our land agreement?
Sure. The Swim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the Sklallam people. While Sklallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of 3 sovereign Sklallam tribal governments. The Lower Elwha Sklallam tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington. Jamestown Sklallam tribe, located in Sequim, Washington. Port Gamble Sklallam tribe, located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown Sklallam tribe. Today, the tribe and the district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And with that, that's going to bring us right into our special presentation. And I understand that we have some guests here for that as well.
We do.
All right.
This on?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, good evening, everyone, and Superintendent Nichols. My name is Aaron Leavell, for those of us that have not met before, and I'm a very proud superintendent of the OESD 114, serving this region. And I'm here tonight for something really exciting. We have Teacher of the Year and Classified Employee of the Year around our region. And I'm just happy to say that tonight, our region's 2023 Regional Classified Employee of the Year is Ms. Crystal Brown. Where she provides vital support to students, staff, and families, ensuring compliance and student success, including support for students with IEPs, 504s, health plans, compliance reviews, data entry, and much more, I'm sure. Crystal's involvement in coordinating the extended school year, the ESY program, which helps students maintain their learning skills and behaviors. And she has contributed to the implementation of positive behavioral interventions and supports, known as PBIS, and multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS, in schools, benefiting the district's culture and student success. And then next, I'd like to share just a couple examples of what her colleagues have written about her. One person said, Crystal's abilities to connect with staff, families, students, and to collaborate with other buildings in the district make her an integral part of our district's success. She has incomparable work ethic, attention to detail, a sense of humor, a heart for all humans, collaboration, and a commitment to professional development. Another colleague said, Crystal's positive attitude, organizational abilities, attention to detail, and willingness to learn has been such an amazing addition to our office. It is such a gift to come into work knowing I have such a close working partner that not only cares deeply for our staff and students, but I can ask questions, bounce ideas off of, work as a team with, and above all, trust each and every day. On top of that, Crystal has over 16 years of unwavering commitment and dedication to serving students, staff, families, and this community. So I would like to just offer a heartfelt congratulations to you, to your colleagues, to the SWIM School District for representing our entire region as our 2023 Regional Classified Employee of the Year. And I would just say, I think that these recognitions are really extra special when they come from your students and or your peers. It just means so much more. So would you please join me in congratulating your here is a nice plaque for you to display wherever you would like.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I don't know if you want to say anything, you can. If not, I'll leave that up to you.
I would just like to say thank you. Those were such kind words from the people I work with. It's a great honor. I'm very unexpected. But a great honor. Thank you.
Great. Congratulations and thank you for what you do. All right. That's gonna go ahead and move us on to, is there any objection to the approval of our minutes, agenda and consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll consider those approved. And it's going to move us on to the public comment portion of the meeting. So we have both virtual public comment as well as in-person public comment. And we want to mention that if you are attending virtually and would like to make any sort of public comment, you'll need to use the raise hand function within Zoom. If you could go ahead and do that now, that way Tracy here can go ahead and capture your name and add you to the list. And do want to mention our guidelines for public comment. And generally on the first item of business of every board meeting is the public comment period, which is something we value. This is an opportunity for visitors to be recognized and make brief comments. And we do have the sign-in sheet for those wishing to speak. If we have members of the public who are attending remotely and would like to speak, like I said, go ahead and use the raise hand function. Total time for public comment is 30 minutes, and each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes, and a group of individuals may combine their time up to a 10-minute maximum. with one spokesperson for the group. However, public comment period is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. The board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during public comment period, and there will be no back and forth dialogue. Please know that the board's silence is neutral. It is neither a signal of agreement nor disagreement with the speaker's remarks. Although the board will not engage in dialogue, the board chair may ask a speaker a clarifying question. It is also possible that the school district staff will contact the speaker at a later time to follow up on an issue raised during public comment period. Finally, please remember that your words have impact and you and not the school district are responsible for your words. We caution all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask you to help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. And in the interest of time and in order to respect others, it is not appropriate for complaints or charges about employees to be mentioned during public comment. And these issues are to be addressed to the superintendent in writing. All right, and we do have Elizabeth.
Good evening, board. Following last Friday's events where the police had to get involved, I just want to express that I'm really concerned with what's going on our school buses. Since the reconfiguration of the elementary schools, bus rides for students in all but one of our schools have gotten much longer. Grey Wolf is the exception. The parents I've talked to have kids that are on the buses for 30 minutes or longer every afternoon. Sorry, 30 minutes longer than usual, than previously. One example is a friend that lives just over a mile from the school, and their bus stop last year was the 9th stop in their route, and they dropped off at 3:10, 25 minutes after school got out. But this year, they are now just the 4th stop, but most days they don't get dropped off until 3:35 to 3:40. That is nearly an hour after school is out, and there's still almost a bus full of students left to still be dropped off. For students that sit calmly and work on their homework or just stare out the window, that's not much of a problem. But for students that are already struggling in school all day and students that are ready to be active and play, sitting on the bus for over an hour is hard. I talk to parents every week that have some pretty awful stories to tell about their kids, from their kids, about the kinds of behaviors that their little kids are exposed to by the bigger kids on the bus rides. Students across all grade levels are antsy and bored, and so they act up on the buses. Our bus driver's job is to safely transport students from point A to point B. The priority of their focus has to be the road and the safety and safely maneuvering a huge machine through our neighborhoods and highways. In school classrooms, we almost never have more than 30 students together with only one adult. But in school, that adult is able to give their undivided attention to their students. And in many cases, there are paraeducators and support staff in and out of classrooms helping when needed. Our buses are packed full. And other than the bus driver who must be focused on traffic, there is no supervision. It is my opinion, and the opinion of many others, that our drivers need supports. The district needs to work it out into the budget or find some way to get bus aides on every bus. Whether it's done by volunteer parents or hiring aides for 1 or maybe 2 hours a day on 18 buses, our drivers and students deserve this level of support. Please try to make that happen. Thank you.
Let's see. Next we have on virtual online, Jim Stopper.
Hi, good evening. I just want to make note of the WASDA recent General Assembly and the good work of this board, your ledge rep, and that 4 legislative positions. And my video, it doesn't want to come on, so we'll just speak through the airways here. But 4 legislative proposals that your team here reviewed and debated and articulated. It went forth all the way to the WASDA General Assembly, where 295 school boards voted for approval on those. So I just want to say thank you for that very important work. Thank Larry, Director Jeffries there for leading those discussions. I mean, these 4 proposals that are now legislative positions have a strong potential of bringing additional funds into this school district and to this region. One being the capital construction grant programs. And I know this is a favorite of Eric's, the transition to kindergarten program. Then we have the ample funding staffing levels, which speaks to those transportation challenges that the previous speaker just spoke about. And then equitable funding for regionalization and staff mix. So again, thank you, school board and superintendent, for working together on those very important ones, and onward you go in good governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jasmine.
Okay, is it working?
Yep, we hear you fine. Go ahead.
So my name is Jasmine, obviously. Today I would like to address all of you who like to use the phrase "change is hard and children are resilient" as a means to justify and brush off the long-term damage being inflicted on children through the reconfiguration. Maybe it doesn't seem real to people who don't know what it's like to have a child who struggles in school, but for some children, change is extremely hard. After struggling through the entirety of kindergarten and first grade, last year, as a second grader, my son finally started to feel like he belonged at school. It was such a relief when I found that I no longer had to spend day after day on the phone, in meetings, and writing emails to advocate for my child. In case you don't know what that's like, to have to do that every day, it's exhausting. And if I feel exhausted, imagine how my son feels, who is actually living it every day. Last year, for the first time, I felt like the staff understood my child and how to help him, and I didn't have to worry about sending him to school. He went from not being able to read or do math at a kindergarten level to meeting grade level in both subjects at the end of second grade, thanks to the amazing school staff who worked hard to get to know him and get him caught up. They had a good routine, and he was doing well in class because there was a large team who knew him well and how to manage his unique and sensitive personality. Now we are almost 4 weeks into his third grade year, and he has taken many, many steps backwards. Every day of last week, he was pulled out of class, and I received a phone call home. On Wednesday, it was twice in less than 4 hours. I'm back to spending hours on the phone, writing emails, and attending meetings, trying to, once again, advocate for my child who can thrive under the right circumstances, but doesn't have the ability to simply accept that change is hard. His learning has been impacted, classroom time being taken away every day because of this reconfiguration, which was completely unnecessary. He now hates school and dreads going every day. He has been robbed of his love of school. I am 100% sure he would not be struggling like this right now if this move had not been made, because at Grey Wolf, the staff knew him well. At Grey Wolf, his new teacher could have collaborated with his second grade teacher and the rest of his team who had him figured out. I told everyone that this was coming, and it didn't seem to matter to any of you. And at the end of the day, none of you have to go home and live with the everyday and long-term consequences of the decisions you made for someone else's child. So as his parent, I want to stand up here and make sure you know that you did this. You did this. I hope it keeps you up at night, because it sure does for me. Thanks.
Next, we have Laura Updike.
You hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Hello, school board directors. I'm listening in tonight because I'm still hoping to hear something about measuring the success of the reconfiguration. Larry Jeffries at a school board meeting last spring and Maren Halverson at the League of Women Voters Forum this summer both said that our superintendent will be held accountable for this project. I'm hoping to hear when and how this will happen. Today, we started the 5th week of the school year. It was the 19th school day. Have you collected any data about the reconfiguration? How much did it cost to move the teachers? How much does it cost for the extra fuel and labor for the additional busing? How many children have been sent to the office with behavior problems in the first 19 days of school? And how does that compare to last year? How much has elementary school enrollment changed since last year? And what's the plan for evaluating test scores? The superintendent implied at one of the early budget forums last spring that reconfiguring would cause learning loss, while Larry Jeffries has said he expects test scores to go up. So what are you guys looking for exactly? When will you be evaluating the test scores? What else will you be measuring? As far as parent feedback goes, a woman I don't know put it perfectly. She wrote on Facebook, quote, "I haven't heard one parent give praise for the reconfiguration, not one," end quote. For many parents, the reconfiguration is a significant waste of time, adding as much as an hour to their daily driving time, sometimes even more. When you're a working mother of young children, an extra hour of driving per day is not an inconvenience, it's a burden. And when gas is $5 a gallon, an extra hour of driving per day is not an insignificant cost. Do you know how many families would like to put their children in music lessons, sports, or dance, but cannot afford it? I don't know either, but I'm sure there are more now than there were last spring. Other parents are feeling helpless as they see their children's behaviors and learning take a sharp turn downward because of the stress of adjusting to a new school. Unfortunately, I have little hope that this board is interested in parent feedback regarding the reconfiguration, since the board never asked for parent input when the idea was proposed, and the board disregarded parent feedback when it was given anyway. I am hoping, though, that your words actually mean something, and that when Larry Jeffries says he wants to hold the superintendent accountable, he actually has a plan to do that. And that when Maren says there will be accountability, that those aren't just empty words to get votes. Thank you.
Thank you. And that will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Superintendent Nichols, if there's anything particularly around the student discipline type of concerns, feel free to follow up on those, please. Okay. Nice. All right. That's going to bring us to our student board representatives. Sarah, hi there. Welcome.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here today. Good evening, everyone. So for today, I don't have anything special or unusual. The school year has been going great. It started off a little bit hard as the flu went around, but students seem to be adapting very well to the school this year. The new freshmen have adopted a little bit too well, if you ask me. But everything else seems to be going great. The seniors are getting ready for all the activities that are to come for the seniors, and the juniors are excited to be juniors this year, and the sophomores are finally not freshmen anymore. So, well, the students have been trying to sign in for clubs and sports, and I'm trying to feed their schedule changes now. And clubs are starting slowly to have more meetings and to actually like be active throughout the school. Homecoming holidays are coming around, homecoming dance is coming around. Very exciting things for students to be prepared for. And then students are also very excited for the new gym. Some sports I know have been practicing there, and even though they can't have games yet, we are all very excited to finally have assemblies there and to have our gym back again, better than ever. So thank you, that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. And that is going to bring us to, we have a facilities operations and security report with Mike Santos.
Oh, thank you. So good evening to the board, Superintendent Nichols, gallery. I'm Mike Santos. I'm the Director of Facilities Operations and Security here at the district. And I wanted to present to you today an update on our facilities, our capital projects. But first, I'd like to mention National Custodian Day. I don't know if any of you heard about that today, but it is National Custodian Day. And we wanted to recognize our incredibly hardworking custodial staff here in the district. They keep the facilities clean, safe, secure. They keep it in an environment where the kids love to come and learn. Again, an immense amount of compliments from the staff and the educators here. But did you know they also affect minor maintenance across the whole district? Whether that's changing bulbs, painting, seasonal decoration, or other seasonal tasking such as screening and refinishing gym floors, the ones that aren't being rebuilt. And lastly, they also help us immensely during the summer with moving our classrooms around, with the furniture and the computers and the desks and all of that property that basically culminates into the learning environment that you see here. So I'd like to give a round of applause to our custodians out there. So I wanted to mention also some of the maintenance ones we've had in the first, well, under 45 days that I've been fortunate to be your director of facilities. We've commenced a formal PM program, preventive maintenance program here in the district. And by that, I mean, we've actually completed scheduled filter changes, and we have rescheduled those filter changes for the future. So we know when they're supposed to occur. And that's all based on the conditions that we've seen in the field. I want to mention, and that's district-wide, by the way. So that's everything in the attics, everything on the roofs. I wanted to mention that the state inspector, the annual ASME or pressure vessel inspections have been completed district-wide with only one discrepancy reported across all 67 assets inspected over a 3-day period. That's an amazing accomplishment. And we have received certifications for all 62 assets. Those will be posted directly. The one discrepancy we had was resolved the same day, so we were able to receive that certification the same day as well, even though we had that discrepancy. We have scheduled quarterly district inspections for those same assets across the district. And when I say schedule the inspections, that's the maintenance staff inspecting those pieces of equipment instead of the state inspector doing it. The state inspector comes out once a year, but we will be inspecting those pieces of equipment ourselves to ensure that we're proactive and we observe the conditions in the field prior to the inspections. We've installed commercial washers and dryers at Gray Wolf in the middle school. That is significant because those staffs have been typically outfitted with residential scratch and dent units from Home Depot. That's not a bad thing. It's just that they don't last very long in this rather industrial environment, in the environment that our custodians work in and serve the educators and the students where they're at. I mean, they're washing the pads off of the scrubbers. It's heavy imbalance stuff. So it's really a commercial washer environment. So the district has allowed us to replace 2 sets of washer and dryers with Speed Queen units that have full 5-year warranties, parts and labor all in. So if something goes wrong with them, we just call Speed Queen and they can not be used. We don't have to lay our hands on them for 5 years. But they're 10-year units, and I can tell you that from experience. I would tell you a rather boring Antarctic story, but I won't do that. So, but I will tell you that I personally have units in the field that I installed back in 2005 that are still working on the other side of the world. So they're a great brand. They've got a great reputation, and our custodians deserve to have reliable equipment to serve their staff. I want to thank the custodial and maintenance staff in an immense way for the high school gym turnover. What I mean by that is the transition from construction to full turnover and use of the gym, which is today. Actually, it was turned over last week, but I want to thank them for their incredible support during the period of time when the teams were being shuffled around quite a bit between the different gyms in the district. And it was uncomfortable for everybody involved really, because we didn't have the main gym to use. So along with that, I want to thank Craig Brooks for his shepherding of this project from the very beginning, all the way to about the 75–80% phase where I took it and let Craig go back and do the great job he does as the AD and finish it up. I'll get into the status of that project here in just a moment. Capital equipment procurement legacy from retirement. We procured a new large 72-inch deck mower for the groundskeeping staff here. And that's to replace the 1990s era mower and brush tractor that are out in our backyards over here. Well deserved, well needed, quite frankly. So our plans for those two pieces of equipment are either surplus or auction. New dump trailer procured this year to affect the Grable 2024 classroom activation. Ms. Lopez has a couple of classrooms out of Grable that are currently full of stuff. It's a myriad of things. So we need to clear those out for her. Some of that is refuse, some of it may be reused, but in the meantime, we need some way to move it. And it was going to cost us more in moving expenses to have movers do it than it would have costed for us to procure the trailer so we could use it for other groundskeeping needs, the bus barn clean out, if that really needs to be done, with other items that are out of the code, and numerous other constant operational needs. Moving on to capital projects. Next slide, please. The new swim high school gym floor, the playing surface and bleachers were released for full use on the 27th of September. So what that means is the bleachers can be operated and the floor can be used for volleyball and basketball as of the 27th. Some of the fun list items on the project, temporary thresholds were installed to protect the front edge so they don't get damaged prior to permanent thresholds and new doors being put in. Those were put in on the 25th. Backboard adjustments were completed on Friday. ADS company out of Utah came out and adjusted all the backboards back up to 10 feet in the main gym. So that's complete. So basketball competition can now occur in there as well. The end padding reinstalls are scheduled for this week. I don't have an exact date yet. The end board areas have been painted purple in anticipation of those pads going back in to cover some of the, well, let's just say, legacy language that was left on from previous years. New ADA compliant entry and exit doors and approaches are in design. Design was approved, and their designers have that now. And the bleacher mechanical rehabilitation will start the week of the 16th after the parts have been shipped to the contractor. And that is after homecoming, I want to know. Okay. Yeah, so here's a panoramic shot of the new gym. It's spectacular. Looks very good. I hope some of you or all of you get a chance to walk through it. It is open to walk through it anytime. So if you would like to go see it, I'd be happy to escort any of you. Just let me know. Or I get somebody to take you over there. It's quite lovely. They did a heck of a job. Next slide, please. I want to talk about the flat roof capital project that was in process upon my arrival here. An amazing job by the company that completed it. I was up on the roofs myself, inspecting the work that was completed. I had a nice long conversation with the contractor about the system used, about how they determined what system to use for this environment, and what its temperature constraints were, and what its tolerances were. The new roof systems have a 20-year warranty, which is unheard of, really, a flat roof system. These flat roof systems, being a two-part system, are not, they're proprietary. It's a proprietary product. It's not our own product. It is completely proprietary. It's by a company called Trentco. And those systems will be inspected by the installer every 2 years as a condition of the contract and maintained by the contractor as required for that whole term. The systems were installed over the existing Hypalon roofs. Those Hypalon roofing systems were inspected prior to these flat roof systems going up, and they were deemed viable for recoat. That was the choice, the process of determination. The project finished under budget. happy to report. And that allowed us to address multiple other significant leaks on other high school campus roofs as we work through additional roof rehabilitation capital project candidates. So we were able to take some of that underrun and fix it. Not completely rehabilitate the roof, but I want to be clear about that, but just go through and spot patch some of the other roofs as we begin to get the condition indexes of those roofs and bring those before you at a later date. So here's the gym roof. It's approximately the total area treated is about 15,000 to 16,000 square feet. It's a big job. Took about 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks to complete. Next slide, please. This is the extent of the high school cafeteria roof. It's about 2,500 square feet. It was the worst flat roof in the group. However, it's turned out quite well. The picture on the right is a picture I took during the inspection. You can see how the product itself goes up the knee walls and the support walls there. It goes into the curving of the HVAC equipment in order to protect those seams and to ensure that those seams don't dry out, move over time, and then cause further leaks and damage to the facility. Next slide, please. That is the auditorium roof. Slide on the right is similar. You can see the curving and the flashing that was redone on that side of the roof. I know it's hard to see here in the audience, but this particular roof was probably one of the the hardest one to do because of the HVAC units and how they're positioned on that end of the roof and how constrained the distance is between the end of the HVAC unit and a curved wall. It's a very hard installation because you don't have a lot of room burning. You don't have a lot of room to lay material. You don't have a lot of room to manipulate the curving and ensure that it was correct. But fully inspected by my team and I'm here to witness that it's outstanding, flawless. Next slide, please. So I want to talk to you about what's on the horizon. This is what we're working on today and what is coming up. So the Academy HVAC install is scheduled to commence in December and continue through final equipment delivery in March. The equipment is being delivered in 2 phases due to manufacturer supply chain issues. So if you're wondering if there's going to be 2 install periods, the answer is yes. The reason why we're choosing to do it this way and not waiting until March is because the majority of legacy units at OPA are non-operation. They have already been failed. They've already failed, and they're not recoverable. They're old PACE units that were out of service and completely unserviceable and unsupportable 5-6 years ago. So we felt it more prudent to install in 2 phases so we can get heat to the gym and so we can get heat to some of the administrative offices, classrooms. The high school HVAC capital project, 75% design review was completed. That's a typo. Was completed on 9/28. 95% drawings are anticipated by 10/16. Again, that is a typo. My apologies. Changes to the scope are anticipated based on supplemental life cycle analysis of the high school systems, which I'm doing myself, based on run times and some of the knowledge that we have with other staff members here, trying to figure out exactly if they've been running around the clock, what were the duty cycles, so on. So we're trying to figure out what's been running constantly. We've got some units out there, for example, that are only 6 years old. Their duty cycle is supposed to be 20%. My understanding is they've been running 24/7 for 6 years. When you run the math on life cycle, that's basically you run about 80% of the life cycle out of those units in the 6 years that we've had. So I can't confirm that yet. Those are the preliminary numbers, and that's why I'm saying changes to scope are probably anticipated. We're going to continue to look at that throughout the end of the week and confirm it with design engineering. Upon that, there's a couple other examples that I want to bring up, and one is building 173 at Grey Wolf. That HVAC unit is completely failed. Completely failed beginning of the summer. Unfortunately, the educator and her students had to endure 85, 90-degree temperatures in that room. And so we went to Home Depot and got her 3 portable AC units so they could bear the environment, for the last 3-4 weeks of the summer. That is not a practice we want to continue. So we are going to probably include 173 in that bar unit in the capital project. We have a couple of other units at OPA and Grable that are in similar shape that we will more than likely consider. We do not anticipate an increase to the project budget. But again, specific systems recapitalized by the project budget. District-wide fire protection systems project is being rescoped and will be brought to the board and requested as a project as soon as first quarter calendar year 24. The reason why it's being rescoped versus what was previously on paper at the beginning of this year is that we've had some additional failures in some of the control systems. Some of the devices, some of the communication between the controllers and the devices and some of the other facilities. So we need to add that to the scope that was there previously and ensure that we take a holistic look at modernizing fire protection and annunciation, detection, and device replacement across the district and not just compartmentalize it to 1 or 2 places. Plus it gets us economy of scale. So if we look at it holistically, and we look at all the systems, the legacy system, delisted systems that we have, we're anticipating being able to go further and wider across the Sound to attract a large set of companies that would be willing to bid on a project at that scale. That's all I have. Do you have any questions? Question? Certainly.
Yeah, well, I think fantastic. I mean, those roofs look great.
Thank you.
I've had to put on a flat roof on a previous home. The product is very, very important with flat roofs because they just don't hold up as well as the pitched roofs. So I think that's good. And for the roof on the gym, the high school gym, it will protect the beautiful new floor. Doesn't make sense to have a leaky roof above the beautiful new floor. You mentioned dates for compression chambers, the ASME
Yes.
inspection.
Yes.
For those. Oftentimes in the past, I've noticed we say we're going to inspect them regularly, but we don't put down hard dates. So it never happens. Are there hard dates for those inspections?
Yes. They are on the calendar. They are in the IQ system. They will come up as work orders on the dates that they are due.
Right. And then I'm glad you addressed or mentioned the failures of some of these systems, running them 24/7 when that's not what they're designed to do. Hopefully we can get to a point where we're not doing that as much. Like the 20-year roof, I'd like it to last 20 years and not have to replace it every 5 years or something because we weren't paying attention to something else. Ice buildup on the roof, which could happen.
Well, it sounds like I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, it sounds like what you're saying is that the company that did the install on the roof will be coming every 2 years.
Yeah.
To check it. That's fantastic. And they'll do any sort of, cautionary repairs so that it doesn't, whatever needs to be done, they will do it. And that's part of the contract that we
Yes,
have with them.
That's correct.
Fantastic.
But to the councilman's point,
Yeah.
it's still incumbent upon us to go up on those roofs on a periodic basis and do I call them PM inspections, but there's really nothing preventive about it except for the inspection part. So we do need to go up on those roofs occasionally and observe them. Take a look and make sure the flashing's not there. Make sure, to your point, that the ice is building up in the roof drains, causing other problems. And we absolutely need to do that. There's more to that than simply just saying we're gonna go up on the roof. We need to be able to do that safely. And we'll have some ideas on that at a later date. But you're absolutely correct. Those roofs, as they have been brought forward as a 20-year system now, need to be inspected and cared for and overseen in order to be a 20-year product. And we'll be able to Councilwoman's point. we will depend on the contractor to do the final repairs, but if we find a defect in the roof, they'll be out immediately.
Yeah, you won't
Direct back.
wait 2 years for them.
Correct, that's correct. Any other questions?
I'd encourage you to do those inspections, come up with a schedule,
Quarterly,
and with a date, like I said, sometimes those fall through the cracks and they don't get done, and we find ourselves in these failure mode situations.
I agree. One thing I didn't mention in our presentation today. So 3 subsystems, asset class subsystems, have been scheduled for quarterly inspections. One is roofs, because we just got done doing flat roofs. Those roofs in particular, we know what the other roofs are like. In fact, Tremco is going to come out and give us a condition index, a full condition index report on the roofs that were not done over the next couple of months, is what they told me. So they'll be out here and they will give us a CI inspection on the other roofs. We know that they've got trouble. But the other 2 systems that we've already scheduled, that should be clear, those quarterly inspections are the pressure vessels, the roofs themselves. And we're also starting to look at the HVAC units on the roof on a regular basis, the ones that are still operating and haven't been tagged out. So, and those are commonly looked at either on a quarter, semi-annual, or an annual basis. We need to look at them a little more often because we haven't been able to change those filters quite as often as we would have wanted to in the past. So we're going to accelerate that in the front end. Hopefully be able to stretch them back out to the 6-month, 1-year changes in the future, but that'll be determined on what we see with the filters and the belts that come off those machines. Those are currently going to be our schedule for 3 weeks. Quarterly. Those 3 items. Yes. So that's the nascent PM program that I've described.
I would just like to say I really appreciate the professional quality of the work that you're obviously doing here to try to help us get our arms around just the overall picture of what all of our facilities needs are, how we can prioritize them, how we can make sure that, we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have a failed HVAC system that we can't repair for 2 years because, we just aren't, we don't have the funds or whatever to take care of it and to pay attention to the maintenance up front. And anyway, I just, it feels great to hear that, you are starting to address this in a more systematic, orderly way. And so thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. I want to make sure that council, I know the superintendent understands because we meet once a week, but I want to make sure the council understands that it's the hardworking men and women of the maintenance, the facility specifically in the operations group, so it's your maintenance personnel and the custodians. They are our eyes and ears in the field. So they tell us when floors are failing, they tell us when paint's failing, they tell us when fixtures no longer can be fixed, they tell us when HVAC, of course, inspection fail. They tell us when there's leaks.
Yeah.
They are the eyes and ears. They are our hot shots, our first responders in the asset management. So what we've tried to convey to them is one of the mantras in the asset management profession is no surprises. So we try very hard to not be surprised by catastrophic failure and by equipment that no longer works and unfortunately leaves an educator in the class, subject to a 90-degree environment indoors. That's not something we want to continue to endure. So you'll start seeing more proactive capital requests and the data and the philosophy and the methodology of being predictive, proactive, and condition-based, based in those capital requests as we move forward over the next few quarters.
You have one question on the HVAC. So that part of the life is running out, they're running 24/7. Is that a training issue? Is it a programming issue under them? What have we done to address to make sure we don't run into that going forward?
So let me address the first part of your question. The root cause, if you want to call it. That's really what it is. It's the reason why they're running 24/7 is because the other units next to them failed. a long time ago. So over that 6-year period, they ran 24/7 to make up for the capacity that was lost on the other units that weren't replaced or could be repaired. To answer the second part of your question, we have designed the 75% design addresses that. So it addresses the units that have failed long ago, and it addresses the units that have been running nonstop for the last 6 years. What I don't know today is what is the condition of the units that are on the roof that are only 6 years old that have been running 24/7. I will know that in the next 72 hours. And based on the condition that I find, you know, if they're worn out, just bearings, I mean, they're rotating equipment. So if they're worn out, or if we see signs of imminent failure in those units, they're going to remain in the design. They are in the design today, but they're going to remain in the design. I have asked to have an opportunity to go inspect those machines in case they could be what we call service life extended, otherwise known as being rebuilt. Right? So if we could rebuild them, okay, and take them out of the capital project, essentially fix them in the field, give them another 5 to 8 years of life. I would prefer to pull them out of this capital project, revert that fund, or reprogram those funds over to the building 173 since we're over. So we'll kind of make those decisions as we go along. It's not a cost adder to remove the units from the design because they're not dependent upon each other.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
I would like to say one more thing, is from the student perspective, I would like to thank you so much and thank all the people that has been working with you, because it's so important for us, like the auditorium, the gym, everything. I'm so happy, and throughout the slideshow, I was looking at it, it made me so happy to know that everything has been repaired and that you really care and that you put 100% to that work. So thank you so much, sir.
But thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. There were a lot of people involved. It's not just me. So it was a team effort. You know, Craig Brooks, I'm sure you know him. So say thank you to him as well when you see the next meeting. So he was a big part of it as well. So
Thank you for that thorough report. We appreciate it.
thank you very much.
All right. It's going to bring us to our superintendent report.
All right, well, to continue with Director Santos' report, his duties also include safety and security in addition to facilities maintenance and operations. So I want to let you know that he and I will be attending a regional safety and school security forum. We'll be meeting with other regions in the ESD area to talk about hot topics with school security. And just as thorough as he's been around this, I can say we're planning on the same for safety and security. So we look forward to updating you. Speaking of safety, I do want to address the issue that has been on people's minds and certainly in public comment tonight about the school buses. So what I'd like to do is just go through how we do handle a situation like that did occur on Friday. And due to privacy issues with students, of course, I'm not going to speak about the intimate details of any specific incident, but I just want to tell you in general how things work. So if we have a student conduct issue on a school bus, and we have a driver in a situation where he or she feels that they need to pull the bus over to address the concern, that's protocol, that's absolutely what should be done. If there is need of assistance on any school bus, the dispatcher is radioed from the school bus driver. The dispatcher then has the protocols to take it from there. In Friday's case, the dispatcher was requested that they contact district office and that we know that they were considering that potentially they might need assistance from law enforcement. So our first call is always to our school resource officer. And so that's what occurred on Friday, as well as the fact that we had escalation in the event. And so 911 was also called. So we actually had dispatch receive 2 calls that day. And I'm proud we did. That was the thorough call to make and got resources to our driver and our students relatively quickly. I would like to say that as these things unfold, we do have cameras on our buses, and so we do have video that can be thoroughly reviewed. We have had a team that has reviewed the video. 5 of us have reviewed it. I also would share with you that we have discipline protocol that we do go through, and the discipline protocol is policy and procedure, and is also dictated by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, so state level policy protocols that we're required to follow. We're doing all of that. And in addition to that, we recognize that in some instances, we do have school issues that happen or on the school bus that have some level of violence to them. And we have a threat assessment protocol that we are trained in, and we do carry that out. And that includes an entire team of responders to discuss the specific incident, all of the details, process that, and make determinations. So all of those steps are being followed, along with the reaching out to any parents, family members that have had students who have been significantly involved. And one thing we've recognized about our school buses is that the support that bus drivers need around training, around student management, the way that we set up our buses for students to be seated in certain ways. Our bus drivers are amazing and are organizing their buses every single day to try to work in those parameters. I also heard tonight that there was interest in considering para support on school buses. We have some runs that have para support on them, but not all. And one of our WASDA platforms that we need to really think about is related to transportation. In the rural areas like Swim, we have a real challenge with transportation funding from the state because you are considered to have a percentage of efficiency. But when you're going miles and miles and miles because you have that much mileage between stops, your efficiency, of course, is going to be lower based on these state tables. So we are advocating for increased transportation funding and certainly recognize that support on school buses, especially on particular runs, is important there too. So I did want you to hear how we do respond to such events, and if you have any particular questions, let me know, of course.
I have a question. Somebody had mentioned earlier that they think there's an average of 30 minutes on the buses compared to last year. Are we finding that data accurate, that with the average length this year as opposed to last year is 30 minutes longer per bus ride?
So I don't have specifics on each bus ride being 30 minutes longer because it depends on which student you're speaking of. Right? Some students started from Grey Wolf last year and some are starting from the campus here at Haller Stadium. I would say that when you ride from Haller Stadium to Grey Wolf, that is about a 10-minute ride over. We are waiting at Grey Wolf to load buses, and that takes, depends on which part of the line you're in for that lineup. It's different amounts of time per bus, but let's say 10 minutes. And then they're driving back out, so it would take 10 minutes to get back to the Haller Stadium lot. So I can see where there would be some buses where that 30 minutes is accurate.
So it's not an average, there's certain ones that we're.
Correct.
And are we working and trying to get that time down with the transportation director? Because I know he's new to the area, or is this just kind of what we're stuck with all year long?
No, we've continued to make some rearrangements, and bus director is working with drivers to think about what can make a difference. For instance, we do have special education transport buses, and we have switched where they are in line to try to get some efficiencies there. We have all east heading buses in the front of the line so that they can depart first and have timing be as efficient as possible there. So we do keep looking at that week to week, and we're making tweaks, and the bus drivers have great ideas for us as well. The other aspect to it is how you have students trained to depart and get on the buses. So both in the Haller Stadium and at Grey Wolf, we've tried different configurations for how we actually lead the students out, load the buses, how we line the buses up for them. So we are very much open to looking at every idea we can think of.
Yeah. And I do have to say that my own personal experience, I have a son who is at Grey Wolf, and so he's experienced the transfer buses. We did it, partially convenience and also to see how it's going. And I've experienced no issues. The transfer bus seems to be working really well. With the times he's getting there on breakfast. So I haven't seen or heard complaints about the transfer buses. So I think that part, although we started in the beginning, I know with some issues, it seems like that's been worked out. So I think we are making progress, and it's good to hear that we're still continuing working on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some other information I want to share related to visiting schools. I did go to the career fair here at the high school last week, and it was wonderful to see so many colleges and institutions come out to the peninsula to have the opportunity to meet and speak face to face with students. And I know that students were coming in waves and having a smaller group experience so that they could access these folks and hear about the ideas. And as I made my way around, I asked the career fair representatives that I was curious what the students were asking them about. And they were delighted to tell me that freshmen and sophomore, younger participants were very eager to learn what the opportunities were. So that's great that we're getting students in younger and getting information. I'd also like to talk about the fact that Helen Holler had a field trip for Riverfest and went out to the interpretive center, and that was a fantastic trip. I saw a lot of different volunteerism going on, as Swim does so well. Volunteers everywhere, students highly engaged in many hands-on activities, so that was great. Went out today to Grey Wolf and visited almost every kindergarten class. I just have to praise the teachers. Someone mentioned this the 19th day of school, and I saw that repetitively in calendar time, and for having 19 days, the teachers have done marvelous work with our students and are bringing them along wonderfully. I'd also like to let you know that there have been some opportunities to hear more from our state representatives. I was able to attend coffee chat with Colleen McAleer and Kevin Vanderway was on, and then also OSPI Zoom. So we're getting a lot of information about policy priorities coming out of the state level, and we'll stay in touch about those, especially as we approach our WASDA conference time. And then Swim Education Foundation and the Heller Foundation, I've attended recent meetings with both of them, and it's just wonderful partnership, and our school district is going to benefit greatly from those things. And we're coming up with some ideas. We have the Heller Foundation Awards that will be held here on the Swim campus later this month, October 24th. And then Swim Education Foundation is requesting that we consider partnering with them for a community education event later in the spring. So I'll bring you more when you know more there. Last but not least, today is not only National Custodian Day, but it also is Count Day in our system. And we are up over last year by about 20 students, so we continue to be making headway there. And then I'd also like to let you know that it is National Principals Month. And I just would like to put a shout out to our principal leadership in all of the buildings. The job is a demanding one, and our principals are absolutely superstars when it comes to putting in the hard work and knowing their students well. It is at the football game against PA. Although we may not have gotten a win, what was a win is watching almost our entire administrative team being present and interacting with all of the students, and just the students that came up to them to talk. It shows relationships matter, and our principal team makes that happen.
Any other questions for them? All right, thank you very much. And to start off with board business, we have the approval of renewal multi-agency the reciprocal maintenance agreement. Did you want to introduce that?
Sure. So decades ago, SQUIM School District entered into a reciprocal agreement with many other agencies, including Port Angeles, Forks. You can get the flavor there. And it had never been renewed. But what it is simply a reciprocal service agreement that if we were to need labor, equipment, in some type of an emergency, we could access it from any of the entities in this agreement. And Director Santos has reviewed that very thoroughly for us, and we are coming tonight to recommend that we do enter into that partnership again. We haven't got a specific instance where we would say we've accessed it, but certainly to have that partnership and be a partner back if needed, really important in these times.
So. Motion.
I guess, so we can discuss it. I move that we approve the reciprocal agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I think you mentioned it. Is this one of those things that if we didn't approve it, we probably need it tomorrow? Oh, and we
Marcus
have
Ross
approved
says
it.
yes.
I think this was approved last in what, 2005 or something like that? So it's 20 years old, less than 20 years old, and we've never really had to use it. As far
Well,
as,
we must say, both Director Santos and I are relatively new, so we aren't aware of a time where we have accessed it. But certainly, we don't see any harm in offering what we have to others in need and know they would feel the same to serve us.
A new good neighbor.
Yes.
well, and I'm all in favor of collaboration within Clallam County of other school districts, the cities and county. I think that's a great idea. And this is one way to do it, even if we never use it, it's there in case we need it.
Any further discussion? I remember that we have more into this virtual experience. All right, Sarah, care to give an advisory vote on this particular?
Sure.
Would you approve this?
Aye.
Yeah. All those in favor of approval, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye as well, so. Next, we have we have a settlement offer package.
So as you are aware, Spring School District did enter into a seeking a settlement with Jewel related to vaping products and influence on our students. The Jewel settlement did come in last year, and you have forwarded an approval for that. This is a secondary subsidiary of Altria, and it is a lower settlement amount that is related to the same class action. So I would like to recommend this evening that we do accept the amount that each district is being awarded is resulting from enrollment and an impact factor that the legal teams have determined, and you can see all of those in the attachments.
I move that we approve the Altria settlement offer packet.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Director Rowan?
Yeah, I do have a question on this. Are these funds tied to, using these funds for related things? Or are they just up to the school district to decide how the funds are spent? Or do we know that yet?
I do believe that there is some expectation that it would be used for student safety, student well-being. I don't believe it has to be specifically used for vaping education per se. But once we do have the settlements approved and we actually see the payouts, we have yet to see the Jewel payout, for instance, then we will convene with high school principal Aaron Fox, and student advisory group is another area that I would like to have involved and make a decision about how to best spend it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, Sarah, would you care to give an advisory vote on this?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is gonna bring us to Settlement, first reading approval of policy 1610 conflicts of interest.
This policy is updated per recommendation of WASDA, primarily related to the fact that there's been an increase in the allowable beneficial interest from $1,500 to $3,000 per month for municipal officers who might contract with the district.
I move that we move policy 1610 regarding conflicts of interest to second reading.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Sorry.
Aye.
All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And bring us to, motion passes. First reading and approval of policy 4040, public access to district records.
This is also a WASDA revision. The language has been brought into this policy to protect student personal information and also to be sure that anyone who's suffered from domestic violence that has been notified and has notified the district of such would have protections as well as requiring the reporting of board meetings.
We have a motion.
I we move policy 4040, public access to district records to second reading.
Okay. A second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? You can feel free to start weighing in on the discussion portion too, if you feel it's so inclined. All right, Sarah, advisory vote?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we have first reading approval of policy 5161, civility in the workplace.
This is a new policy that has been recommended across the state by WASDA, and it came out in April 2023's recommendations for new policies. And we're bringing it to you tonight in support of the creation of a work environment that is safe, civil, and grounded, and also recognizes that the civility in the workplace can be helpful in multiple circumstances between students and staff, staff to staff, and also staff and community.
Okay. We have a motion.
Yeah, I'll move that we move policy 5161, civility in the workplace to second reading.
I'll second.
Do you have any discussion?
I'll discuss a little bit. This is one I've kind of been pushing for several years. And even talking to WASDA, and they didn't have one. And we've had civility policies about how teachers should treat students and how students should treat each other. But we haven't had one on how the adults in the education world should treat each other. And this goes a long way to putting expectations of civil discourse and behavior among the adults that model it for the students, but also just for a more efficient and enjoyable workplace. We want to make sure that everyone is civil to everyone else, even though there may be disagreements. Understand that. So I really appreciate this particular policy.
Any additional discussion? Sorry, you've given advisory vote? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Passes. First reading and approval of policy 5612, temporary administrators.
This policy is another update from WASDA regarding the number of hours that a school district is authorized to hire an experienced veteran who may be retired. And so it does increase the employees to be able to work up to 1,040 hours per year, and does allow school districts much more flexibility in hiring retirees back into systems.
We have a motion. I move that we move policy 5612, temporary administration, to second reading.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. I'll just share that I think increased flexibility with this is very good. You know, particularly I think about the community that we live in, other resources that might be needed or tapped. It's just it's a good thing, going in the right direction. So, and also gives somebody some peace of mind if they are considering retirement, that there's some flexibility to maybe still be a part of the schools once they do. So I think that's all wonderful. Decide.
Aye.
All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, that's gonna bring us to discussion and approval of the Spring School Board's top legislative priorities. Based on Director Jeffrey's recommendation, we were setting the agenda. We did pick some items that we would recommend as top items for consideration. One thing I'll make a note of here is that these are not in any particular order, nor will they be submitted that way to WASDA. So, in other words, we don't have to differentiate between number 1 versus number 10. They will be carry the same weight when they're submitted. So that removes a layer of complexity in our decision making, if you will. So we've selected some items that I think we are want to consider as priority items. However, one thing that potentially, not to throw this into the mix, but I did, do we want to consider? We do have that legislative. Yes, yeah, I guess I am. I'm going to throw it in the mix. We do have a WASDA position on transportation. So potentially, now of course that means which one would we potentially pull out, but I did want to just go over the transportation one for those who are may not be familiar. But it's pretty thorough. It just talks about expanding funding for transportation, making it more realistic based on the costs. And to me, it seems, and there's a lot of other positions that also affect transportation, but that may be one that we would consider.
There's one basic transportation funding proposal.
Is that the one passed in 2021?
Yeah, it passed in 2021, so it's an ongoing problem or concern. And I think, given our earlier discussion during public comment and your discussion, that could be important. There are probably other positions that are also important, but we are only allowed to turn in 10. The president of the board turns in 10 to WASDA. They take all proposals that come in from the school districts and eventually tabulate them, and they'll be presenting WASDA's top 10. And it may not include any of ours. I would be surprised if it doesn't, but it might be different from these. I think for me, it's important, like what are our priorities that we are going to focus on. If they're not exactly the same as WASDA's, well, so be it. But, focus on those. Which one would we get rid of? Given my background with raising money to pay for unpaid meal debts, which we still have, and money would still need to be raised. But right now, kids are all getting free lunch, free breakfast, free lunch. And the SEP percentage threshold was recently changed. And that doesn't mean USDA won't change again, especially if there's administrative change in Washington DC, and who knows what any of them, any party up there might do. But right now, it's, we more than qualify for free lunch, free breakfast, free lunch for all our students. Is that correct?
Right, we're in a very strong position for those funds, and I would say to you that we track that very carefully. So we're very well aware, and you were right, recently, we did have a shift in our state for the threshold to qualify. So we will qualify.
So I would say, that's still one we need to keep an eye on, because hungry kids do not learn as well as they should. If there's one that needs to be removed but not forgotten, it might be that one, because right now, I think the transportation concerns for our district in particular are, we have some gaps in funding that we should use some help on.
And I would just want to remind the board that last year on Day on the Hill, the regional priority was twofold. Transportation was one of our priorities because we are all such rural districts, and then special education funding. So I think for us to resurrect this as an idea is a strong one, because I think our partners out on the peninsula will have the same response.
I'm wondering about the first two priorities, the equitable funding for regionalization and staff mix, and then amply funding staffing levels. Is there overlap on those two? Are those, they sound kind of similar to me?
Yeah, there is overlap on a lot of the WASDA positions.
Right.
But in particular, and one thing also to note is, as referenced in the public comment, the 4 items that were submitted to WASDA by the Swim School District, all of those are obviously included in here as well, just because it seems like that would be important. But yeah, the amply funded staffing levels is it's actually a very robust proposal with talks about teachers assistants, instructional coaches, librarians, ELL learners, instruction, occupational therapy, physical therapy, staff, special education support staff. So it's saying, like, yes, these needs are here. It also needs to be funded.
And
It would also include paraeducators that could potentially rise with us.
the regionalization one is a little bit different. That's a comparison between regions, regions that are next door would get only 2% discrepancy rather than the current 6%, and in some cases more. So it's essentially a different kind of proposal. I mean, basically, if you're a poorer district living next door to a rich district, you might not get equitable regionalization.
And depending on how you break down that number, it could be either looked at as a staffing allocation change, that 6%, but also another way we look at the numbers is a per student funding. And the reality is, if we look at it per student funding, the students on the Kitsap Peninsula are getting 12% more per student than we're getting here based on that regionalization. And for one, don't think that one zip code should determine the how much funding comes to a district. I don't mind there being some differences as it relates to property value, cost of living, but for it to be a 6% for adjacent school district seems to be a big stretch. So 2% seems very much more.
And the way it's written, a district Kitsap, northern Kitsap, the 12%, Bainbridge, 12%, is that what you mentioned?
Well, they're at 18%, which
18%.
is 12% different.
They wouldn't get a reduction. It would be, they would raise the regionalizations for the districts next door.
Yeah, it's depending on, when you look at, and I don't know that I want to get too far in the weeds on this one, but, depending on the way you look at the rebates committee recommendation, it does talk about increasing the allocation, and then the percentages get redistributed, somewhat. So, it actually does, if you just look at the map, it almost looks as if it's less, believe it or not. But it's not really less. It's I think North Kitsap, it shows that it would be, they're at 18% now, that it would be only on this, but I think down to 16 or 15%, but the base, it's 16% of a greater number. So it's, the short answer is no, nobody would go down based on this. It would be redistributing in a way that goes up.
What about the class size reduction funding? Because I think that we're okay there compared to our other needs right now that we've talked about. Maybe replacing that one because it is important, but I don't know that we're struggling as much with our class size reduction being needed as we are like the busing funds and other things. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
Well, and again, that seems like maybe something that has the overlap
Yeah.
with the amply funded staffing levels, right? If you've got enough staff, then you're not gonna have a class size problem, so.
Yeah, but I don't know that we're struggling there where we are. So the other ones is my opinion there, but I don't know if there's other things within there because I will admit I was busy the last few weeks.
Well, one thing to note about the class size reduction is it is being attentive to grades K through 3. And in Washington State, we are attentive to grades K through 3 class size. And so I think that this buttresses that expectation that already exists. But I would say to you that we are paying attention to that now.
But is that something we want as one of our legislative priorities over transportation and some of the other stuff?
I will say that for grades K through 3, class size is very important. And if you talk to any teacher, you'll hear from them that absolutely a difference of 4 students makes a big difference. So for instance, in our kindergartens that I was in today, we saw about 16, 17 students per class. And it seemed to be a fair number. So I would consider it a priority.
Another thing to keep in mind is that the top 10, if you will, we would submit these every year. So I'm sort of considering that, considering the one proposal that we have, whether they on universal free school meals. I do think that, yes, we should keep an eye on it, but if we know we're covered for this year, okay, let's go for that. And if for some reason that were to change, we can put it right back in our top 10 in a heartbeat. So, well, not a heartbeat, but in a meeting.
In the next go round.
Yeah, so.
I will say a couple more things. I mean, these, once WASDA figures out their top 10 or 6, that's mainly for a 1-pager talking points to give the legislators. Because they're so busy, they have so much piles of paper on their desks that we give them a 10-page report. They're gonna read the first page, and that's all. So that's what they're trying to keep it that way. Also, that doesn't preclude them from advocating for other proposals that aren't in the top 10. If WASDA voted for it at the General Assembly, they will proactively lobby for passage of certain laws if they conform to what WASDA has said they'd like to see happen. So even if it's the 50th one on our list and a bill comes up, WASDA would lobby for it and testify and so on and so forth. The other thing, R4, I will say, R4 proposal, we have the most proposals of any school district in the General Assembly. All 4 of them passed with 90% or better. One was amended, but it passed. One was passed with 90, almost 98%. So, we did well. And, so appreciate that very much. It was a very interesting experience.
We wanna, don't forget, we have Maren here, has her hand raised. Thank you, Maren.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's been an interesting discussion because it almost got to the point where everybody had a different one to delete from the list. And I do like the idea that Eric brought up that we're really looking at just next year, and we would have another list the year after that, and this will evolve over time. So I'm in agreement with that. I think transportation is really important. And I also think that one of the things I like about this list that I think symbolizes and says a lot about the Sequim School District is the breadth of these policy proposals that it's wide ranging and it's thorough. And so I think it has real symbolic value to me that represents the values of the Sequim School District and the school board and what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm quite at peace with the idea of including transportation in that top 10 and perhaps deleting for right now, the school meal one. So that's my contribution.
Okay, well, why don't I go ahead and attempt to make a motion?
And before you go, the way we kind of came up with this list is the administrative leadership of the school board, which is the president, vice president, and the superintendent sat down and kind of compiled the list based on input and what they heard at the General Assembly and so on and so forth. So I don't know what your motion is going to say, but I would, we'll just make the decision tonight and not leave it up to you guys. But that would be okay too.
Yeah, so go ahead, see if we like it. I would propose that the school board accepts that the school board approves the items to submit for top 10 legislative priorities, with the exception of replacing universal free school meals with transportation funding, is the title. And hoping I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on these items? Okay. All those in favor of the
Advisory. Right, or no?
all those in favor of an advisory vote? Sorry, would you like to give an advisory vote on this?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for that. All those in favor of approving the items as amended, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All right, motion passes. And that will go ahead and conclude our business for this evening. And we will meet again on, is it October 16th at 5:30. All right. And with that, we will be adjourned.